Okay, picture this. It's late. Maybe 3:00 a.m., maybe 4:00 a.m. And you are standing in the middle of this massive sonic divide. On your left, you've got a world that is just dripping with soul. It's warm. It's got vocals, that make you want to lift your hands up.
Right, the church of the dance floor.
The church of the dance floor, exactly. But then on your right, you have something totally different. It's mechanical, it's driving, it's kind of cold, industrial, and it's moving fast.
It's the machine.
The machine. So these are two very, very distinct worlds, right? But what if I told you that maybe the biggest innovation in dance music in the last 30 years didn't come from picking a side? It came from building a bridge right between them.
That is a perfect way to frame it. Today we are talking about what happens when you try to engineer the perfect hybrid.
We are doing a deep dive into the tech house story, specifically focusing on the origins. And I have to be honest, I am so ready to unpack this. I feel like tech house is one of those genres that everyone has danced to.
Oh, for sure.
Probably by accident, but nobody really knows where it actually came from.
It's so true. It's ubiquitous now. It's just everywhere, from huge festivals to these tiny little clubs. But the origin story is fascinating because it's a classic case of what I like to call convergent evolution in music.
Convergent evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, you're already bringing the science. I love it. So what's our mission today?
Our mission is to really uncover how this bridge got built. We need to decode the specific, let's call it the sonic DNA of tech house, what makes it tick, and identify the pioneers who, funnily enough, basically invented a global phenomenon before it even had a name.
That is wild to me. Inventing something before you even know what to call it.
It happens more than you'd think, especially in art. You're solving a problem and suddenly you've created a whole movement.
So before we get into the who and the where, we have to start with the what. We mentioned house and techno as the parents.
Yeah.
Let's get specific. What was in the pantry when these producers started cooking in the late 90s?
Okay, so let's look at the ingredients. First, you have traditional house music. And if you go back to the source material, the U.S. tradition, Chicago, New York house, is really defined by its soul.
Right. Frankie Knuckles, Masters at Work, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's very vocal driven. It's got pianos, strings, organic instruments. It draws so much from disco and R&B. And tempo-wise, it usually sits in that really comfortable pocket of around 120 to 124 beats per minute, BPM.
It's a groove you can just settle into.
Precisely. It's got a swing to it. It's emotional. Now, contrast that with techno. Techno, especially by the mid to late 90s, was all about the edge.
Yeah.
It was minimal. It was mechanical. And crucially, it was faster. Way faster. We're talking 135, 140 BPM, sometimes even higher. It wasn't about singing along. It was about getting lost in this repetitive driving rhythm.
So you have the soul down at 120 and the edge way up at 140. I mean, that's a massive gap.
It's a huge gap. And that created a really practical problem for DJs. If you were playing a set, you kind of had to pick a lane. You were either a house DJ or you were a techno DJ.
Crossing over would be really jarring.
So jarring. I mean, imagine taking a soulful house track with a big diva vocal and speeding it up to 140 BPM to match a techno record.
Oh, she's going to sound like a chipmunk.
Exactly. It sounds ridiculous. And conversely, if you take a driving industrial techno record and slow it down to 120...
It just loses all its energy. It sounds like the battery is dying.
It just drags. That's it. So you had this lingering question floating around the studios and the DJ booths in the late 90s. Producers started asking, what if we could take the soul and the funk of house, but give it the grit and the attitude of techno?
They wanted the best of both worlds.
They were looking for a sweet spot, and according to the history, they found it in a very specific mathematical window, the Goldilocks zone, if you will.
Let me guess. Not too fast, not too slow.
You got it. 125 to 128 BPM.
Wow, that is a really specific window. We're talking about a difference of like 3 or 4 beats per minute.
It seems so small, but on a dance floor, it's everything. That 125 to 128 is crucial. If you go slower, you lose that driving techno feel. You go faster, you lose the funk.
Ah, I see.
That range allowed the music to be groovy, like house, but also stripped back and tough, like techno.
It's like they engineered a rhythm that was just scientifically designed to keep you moving without wearing you out.
That is a great way to put it. It was about sustainability on the dance floor. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Okay, so we've got the tempo locked in. But a genre is so much more than just a speed limit. Let's talk about the vibe check. When you drop a tech house track, what are you actually hearing? What's the texture?
Right, this is where we get into that sonic DNA. The foundation, of course, is the kick drum. It's that classic 4-on-the-floor beat, boom, 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 boom.
Which both house and techno have.
True. But the texture of the kick in tech house is distinct. In-house, the kick is often soft. It's pillowy, booming.
Fills the room.
Yeah. In techno, it's often distorted, aggressive, industrial. Tech house engineered a kick that was punchy and tight.
The notes describe it as rubbery. I love that.
It's the perfect word. It implies this elasticity. It bounces, it hits you in the chest, but it doesn't, hurt. And that leads to the central contradiction of tech house. It is minimal, yet funky.
Minimal, yet funky. That feels like a difficult balance to strike. Usually funk means a lot of moving parts, horns, busy drums. Minimal implies, emptiness.
And that's the magic trick. Tech house gets its funk not by adding more instruments, but by focusing so intensely on the rhythm section. If you really listen, the instrumentation is extremely percussion heavy.
So less melody, more drums.
Much more. In fact, a lot of the time, the percussion is the melody. We're talking about shakers, hi-hats, snares, rim shots, and these looping tribal percussion sounds. The whole goal is to create a groove that just locks you in. It's hypnotic.
I'm picturing a producer just stripping away a piano solo and telling the drummer to just go wild on the hi-hats.
That's not far off. You stop waiting for a big chorus and you just settle into the loop. And then you have the bass lines. In traditional house, you might get a complex chord progression. In tech house, the bass lines are often incredibly simple.
How simple?
Sometimes just 1 or 2 notes.
1 or 2 notes? That sounds kind of boring.
You would think so. But this is where the tech part really comes in. Since the notes aren't changing, the producers use filter movement to create interest.
Okay, unpack that for us non-producers. What is filter movement?
Okay, imagine you're hearing a bass sound. Now imagine placing a heavy blanket over the speaker and then slowly lifting it off and putting it back on.
Okay.
The sound goes from muffled and dark to bright and buzzy and then back down again. That sweeping change in tone. That's filter movement.
I can hear that in my head. It's that wub sound where it feels like the sound is opening up and closing.
Exactly. It makes the bass feel like it's breathing or evolving. It creates this momentum, a rising and falling tide, without actually changing the musical key. It keeps your brain engaged without making you pay attention to a new melody.
It's physical rather than cerebral.
Spot on. Yeah. And what about vocals? You mentioned house is all about the singer, the diva, the big message. Where does the voice fit in here?
Yeah, that seems like the biggest change. You don't really hear tech house tracks with verses and choruses about heartbreak.
No, you don't. In tech house, the voice stops being the lead singer and starts being just another instrument. You rarely get full songs. Instead, you get snippets, a spoken phrase, a looped shout, a weird vocal sample that just repeats.
So it's more about the texture of the voice than the message.
Precisely. It's almost dehumanized, but in a cool way. It fits that cyborg aesthetic, part human, part machine. It's just another layer of rhythm. And this all leads to the biggest structural difference. House music relies on big moments.
Yeah, the breakdown, the big build-up.
The drop. It's a roller coaster.
Hands in the air moments. The big release.
Right. Tech house is different. It's a train. It's about repetition, but evolution. It doesn't stop and start. It just rolls. It grooves. The changes are so subtle, you might not even notice a new hi-hat has come in until you realize you're suddenly dancing harder.
It's sneaky. It kind of creeps up on you.
It creates a flow state. You're not waiting for the drop. You're just living in the groove.
I love that phrase, living in the groove. So we've got the sound down, punchy kicks, rubbery bass, filter sweeps, vocal snippets. But this sound didn't just materialize out of thin air. It had to come from somewhere.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. It becomes a tale of 2 cities.
London and the U.S., specifically the Midwest.
And it's remarkable because it happened at almost the exact same time. It's that convergent evolution again. Different people in different places solving the same problem.
Let's start across the pond. What was going on in London? Because the notes mentioned something called the wiggle, and I'm already obsessed with that name.
The wiggle. You absolutely cannot talk about the origins of tech house without talking about the wiggle parties. It's the most perfect name for this genre.
It really is. It sounds fun. It sounds a little cheeky.
And that was the whole vibe. The key players here were people like Eddie Richards, Nathan Coles, Terry Francis. In the late 90s, London club culture was shifting. You had these massive super clubs playing very commercial vocal trance or
Handbag house.
handbag house, yeah. Cheesy pop-influenced stuff. And the underground naturally rebelled against that.
Went the other way.
They went deep, dark, and dubby. The wiggle parties were legendary because they stripped everything back. It wasn't about a big light show. It was just about this chugging, rolling bass line that felt mischievous.
Mischievous is a great word for it.
Yeah.
It's not taking itself as seriously as, say, techno, which can be very stern.
Exactly. Techno is serious business. Tech house, especially that early London sound, had a bounce to it. It was music for dark basements. Eddie Richards is often called the godfather of tech house for a reason. He really defined that wobbly, rolling sound.
Okay, so London is wiggling. What's happening in the U.S.? Because I know Chicago and Detroit have a huge role to play here, too.
The U.S. side is fascinating because it's a collision of these two massive musical heritages, Chicago house and Detroit techno. And the man standing right at the intersection is Cajmere.
Cajmere, also known as Green Velvet, right?
The one and the same, Curtis Jones, a brilliant, eccentric producer who really embodies the split personality of the whole genre. As Cajmere, he made house. As Green Velvet, he made this weird sci-fi techno.
And when he blurred the lines?
He created the prototype. He started fusing them in a way that just felt totally new. We have to talk about his track Percolator from 1992.
Oh, Percolator. Even if you don't know the name, you know that sound.
It's iconic. And if you really analyze Percolator, it is the definition of proto-tech house. It came out in 92, which is incredibly early, but all the elements are there.
Let's break it down.
It is so minimal. There's no melody to speak of. It's just this hard jacking beat and this weird alien coffee pot noise. Boop, boop, boop.
It's funny, it's minimal, and it grooves so hard.
It was way ahead of its time, but it laid the groundwork. He didn't call it tech house. He was just messing around. Then you have artists like Stacy Pullin in Detroit with his track Sweat in 93. That track bridged the gap between the soulful strings of Detroit techno and the tribal percussion of house.
And Derek Carter, too. He's known as a Chicago house purist, but his productions in the 90s had this real mechanical driving edge to them.
They were tough. That was the word DJs used. I need something tough to play.
So these guys are making these tracks, Percolator, Sweat, and DJs are picking them up. But why? Was it just because they sounded cool, or was there a practical reason?
That is the key question. The utility of this music was undeniable. This is the secret to its success. Tech house didn't start as a genre for the radio. It started as a utility tool for the working DJ.
A tool for the trade. Unpack that.
Well, think about the logistics of DJing back then. You're playing vinyl. You might be playing for 6, maybe 8 hours straight.
That is a long time to keep a crowd moving.
It is. You can't just play banging peak time techno for 6 hours. You'll exhaust people.
Yeah.
And you can't play vocal anthems for 6 hours either. It gets cheesy.
You need to manage the energy. You need valleys to make the peaks feel higher.
You need a bridge. These proto-tech house tracks were the perfect tools. They filled the gap. Often, the tech house track was actually the B-side of a big vocal record.
B-side, of course. The dub mix.
The dub mix. Producers would take the main song, strip out all the vocals, beef up the drums, and just put it on the B-side as a tool for the DJ. And DJs started realizing, hey, these B-sides are actually better than the A-sides. They mix easier, they sound cooler.
They were the functional glue of the dance floor.
They were. A DJ could use a tech house track to transition from a soulful vocal house set into a harder techno set, and nobody would even notice the shift. It just smoothed the edges.
It's like a palate cleanser.
It's the sorbet of dance music, a really funky, bass-heavy sorbet.
I love that this massive genre basically started as the utility tool. It's like if everyone decided the best part of the meal was the breadsticks, and suddenly you have restaurants serving only breadsticks.
That is surprisingly accurate. What happened was DJs started realizing they could play whole sets of this glue. It created this specific vibe. It was cool, detached, steady, sophisticated. It wasn't trying too hard.
And that cool factor resonated. It moved from being a transition tool to being the main event.
It allowed club culture to mature. By the early 2000s, the big rave scene was dying down. The super club era was fading. People wanted smaller, darker, more intimate clubs.
And tech house is perfect for a dark room with a low ceiling.
It is. It's head down, eyes closed music. It totally facilitated the shift from the spectacle of the 90s to the sleekness of the 2000s club scene.
So let's just recap this journey for a second. We start in the late 90s with this desire to merge the soul of house and the edge of techno.
Right.
We find that mathematical sweet spot of 125 to 128 BPM. We strip back the melody, boost the percussion, get that filter moving on the bass.
Creating a sound that is minimal but funky.
And we have London wiggle parties on one side and these Chicago-Detroit hybrids on the other, all converging on this new sound before it even has a proper name.
And suddenly, you have the sonic bridge that takes club culture from the rawness of the 90s into the sleekness of the 2000s.
It really is the perfect hybrid.
Yeah.
It's funny, looking back now, it seems so obvious. Of course, you had mixed house and techno, but at the time, those were like opposing tribes.
They were, and that's why it was so revolutionary. It broke down the walls between the tribes. It basically said, you can have the groove, Andy the machine. You don't have to choose.
Which brings us to the bigger picture. Why does this all matter to us today?
Well, beyond the fact that tech house is arguably the dominant sound at festivals around the world right now, it's a lesson in the power of the middle ground.
How so?
We tend to celebrate the extremes in art, the loudest, the fastest, the most emotional. But tech house proves that there is immense power in synthesis. It took the best parts of two of the biggest genres in history and created a hybrid that was more functional and, frankly, more adaptable than either of its parents.
It was the gateway drug in the best possible way.
Exactly. It made electronic music accessible to a whole new generation who might have found techno a bit too hard or house a bit too old school.
This leaves me with a thought. We talked about how the pioneers, Eddie Richards, Cajmere, they weren't sitting down trying to invent tech house. They were just trying to make house edgier or techno groovier. They were solving a problem.
A very specific problem. What do I play next?
Yeah, my house records are too soft, or my techno records are too fast.
It makes me wonder about innovation in general. We think of geniuses inventing the next big thing from scratch. But are the best innovations actually just the result of someone trying to fix a small, annoying problem?
Like, I need a bridge between these two records, and boom, you accidentally change music history.
That is the provocative question, isn't it? Maybe true innovation isn't about some grand vision, but about the practical solution, the bridge someone is building just to get from point A to point B that accidentally unlocks a whole new world.
Something to think about the next time you're stuck on a problem. Maybe you're not just fixing a glitch. Maybe you're inventing the next genre.
Or at least something that will make people wiggle.
I'll take that. If you want to hear this for yourself, go listen to Cajmere's Percolator, right next to a modern tech house track. You will hear the DNA immediately.
It's undeniable.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the origins of tech house. Keep it locked.
Catch you next time.